We're welcoming in Jake Hoffman, Chief Technology Officer of Gnosis Freight. Hello, Jake.
Sir, hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you.
Okay, well, let's get right to it then. So everyone in the supply chain has invested heavily in visibility over the past decade. Why then does the supply chain still feel so fragmented?
I think the visibility piece, everybody likes to kind of talk crap about visibility now and say that the problems weren't solved and we're still trying to invest in it. But I think it is it's been successful in being solved. A lot of companies that put a bunch of effort, rail carriers, ocean carriers, terminals, and then technology providers like us have put a ton of effort over the past 5 to 10 years in visibility itself and organizing data around container movements, intermodal movements, and everything else. And I think that part it was right. People talk about how it hasn't been successful or hasn't been as successful as they wanted, but I think the visibility component itself is successful. There's not often now that you work with any of the infrastructure providers I just listed out, and they don't have the capability to tell you where stuff is. I think that part's correct. I think the part that is next, that is the problem that people are still kind of seeing and talking about, is you can figure out where something is, but where is it going, and how does that impact all the other modes that are associated with that? And so, particularly, talking about rail is how does rail, like a better rail ETA and a better, when is it actually going to deramp and when is it going to be notified available and what is the storage last free day? How do those things in the future influence when I need to send a truck to go pick up a container or a shipment or anything? And so that connective piece of like not just the visibility component, but the actual decisions and execution beyond it, that's the part I think where people are still feeling the headache. And then where there's still investments being made that us and so many other people in the space are doing. And so like in summary is like, I think the visibility piece was correct. That was something that people had been screaming from the mountaintops forever, that we needed to find a solution for it. And I think largely that has been successful in being solved. But the problem is just the visibility component wasn't enough. It's all the part of what do you do with that comes next.
It's interesting you mentioned rail because so much of their thought process in the recent past was, well, we've got this bulk stuff, or we've got things that need to go somewhere in a large train, not on any particular urgent schedule, just as long as it gets there. So it's kind of a new kind of mindset that they had to manage from the top down, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think it's, like you said, it's different commodities that may not care about things that are as time sensitive. If it's bulk and there's thousands and thousands of tons of the same kind of commodity that are going somewhere, then it doesn't matter if it's the first piece of gravel or the very last one, it's all gravel. But if you get into container moves and, in the world that I mostly live in would be the international container space. If it's a retailer that has a super hot item that they're trying to get at their store in Chicago, then they do want to know, and they want it on the fastest train, and they want to know, hey, is it going to be there tomorrow at 5 p.m. or is it going to slip through the weekend and be there on Monday? And that's where the different commodities and the different things really creates a different sense of urgency for all of that.
And there was sometimes, good luck with that because between the ocean lines, which in the past weren't all that concerned with schedule reliability, they thought if we get there 85% of the time, that's good enough. And of course, we've seen Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd and the Gemini cooperation sort of raise schedule reliability to a new level, which shows that you can accomplish that. And then you connect that to rail, which has some of its issues around Chicago, around some of the larger traffic centers. How do you fight through that? And it's outside companies we've seen, entrepreneurs that have really taken a new approach to especially tracking rail shipments and creating usable data there.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting. It's probably the first couple of conversations that I ever had with any of the class one rail carriers. It was eye-opening for us because they came to us from the perspective of, can you tell us what's coming? Can you help us plan? And because it's like a whole chicken before the egg, like the problems you just talked about of congestion in Chicago or in LA or wherever those things are, that is a symptom of not knowing and not planning in advance. So whenever an ocean carrier would be able to tell them better, hey, BNSF, we're going to send you guys 50,000 containers in the next 30 days or whatever that number is. And here's when those vessels are going to arrive. If you can give them more visibility up front, allows for better planning on the rail, allows to kind of alleviate some of those things. And so that's where the problem, I talked about visibility a minute ago. The problem on the actual execution piece is not so much any singular mode. It's not like, hey, rail can't accommodate what ocean can or whatever. It's the stitching together of all the modes. It's the rail needs good vessel ETA prediction and how many containers they're going to handle so that they can plan for their operations to be smoother. And then vice versa. Rail communicating to the ocean carrier, if you're giving us planning ample time to know what's going to happen, then I can guarantee your subsequent customers that we can give you better, consistent, reliable 4-day transit times from point A to point B.
So with that connective issue, is the next decade about making rail better or making rail work better with everything around it?
I think that's a good question. And I think that each of the rail carriers individually, and they've all done different things over the past couple of years, is getting better and better at their own data, as in their own ETA predictions, their own APIs and connectivity to players in the space, us being one of those people, working better with the ocean carriers and so on. I think it is more, around the connecting to the other parties that they interact with. And the example I just gave about an ocean carrier giving the rail carrier better ETA predictions on like when their containers are going to get there and what's coming so that they can plan. And then the rail carrier being able to use that to tell their end customer. And how does that affect the dray move? How does that affect any of the intermodal moves for their customers and everything? And so it's more around that like next step of, instead of it all being siloed into the specific mode, so rail being siloed to when it's ramped, if it's a container, and when it's ramped and when it's deramped, to that is a milestone that is a part of a long journey that someone is stitching together all the different modes and giving the end customer what they really want to see.
And that leads to the next question. If no one company owns the entire freight journey, who is responsible for making the ecosystem actually work together?
That's my biased opinion, is that technology is the best company to do that, right? And it's a third party that, we as a technology provider, and there's others out there that do similar things, is we, along with the end shipper, are the only ones that are touching all of them together. So we are communicating with the ocean carrier, we're communicating with the rail carrier, we're communicating with a trucker for, if it's an international container for a dray move, if it's intermodal, if it's any flat car, box car, whatever it is, any of those kind of things, we're communicating with each of the parties and stitching all that data together end to end. Now, us and any other technology provider, it's not our data. We're not the owner of it, right? We're not like the end all be all of like doing this together. It's really the shipper. The shipper is the person that cares about this, that is the person that is paying for the goods that are inside all of these different modes. We are just their conduit, their medium through which they can get information from all these places. We have, in our database, we have a single record that is ocean container in gates in China, goes across the water, gets discharged in LA, gets on the rail in Chicago, gets on the rail in LA and it's going to Chicago, and we tell you where it is. And we give our customer one end-to-end view of that, even though there's all these different parties along the way that we get data from and standardize and normalize so that the shipper can just see what they care about at the end of the day.
When we shift our line of questioning here a little bit, AI is becoming part of every logistics conversation lately. What are people getting right and what are they getting wrong about artificial intelligence?
I think what people are getting right is how exciting it is. I do believe that AI will transform the industry. It'll transform freight as we know it, and it has been already. There's really cool things that you can do that it can take unstructured information, which in our world of freight, there's unstructured documents and communication and ETA prediction and all these kind of things that AI is super good at taking and making sense of it and understanding. All that is true, and it's exciting. The thing I think that they get wrong, and they as in anybody that's talking about AI in logistics or in freight, is that it's not just the AI piece that is the differentiator. It's the operational data behind the scenes that you give to AI and allow it to make decisions that makes the real difference. And I think that is illustrated really well by think about how good AI has gotten over the past 2 years. 2 years ago, the best AI company that in freight, I don't know who it would be that ever would have come along in freight 2 years ago, is nowhere near probably the worst one now. And that's only the result of the AI models and infrastructure and everything else getting so good at understanding information and processing and thinking and doing those kind of things. And so it can only stand to come that the AI models that come in the future will be better and better. But the problem is, no matter how good AI gets, if it's the newest, latest, and greatest artificial general super intelligent model that thinks better than you or me ever could, it's only as good as whatever data you put in. So if you start giving it the best data, if you start giving it data, if the data is crap, then you just start automating really fast, really bad decisions. If you give it operational data that's really good and you can rely on and make sense, then AI will be really amazing and do some really cool things.
That's a great point. So if we're having this conversation again 5 years from now, what will have fundamentally changed about how freight moves?
If everything that we've kind of talked about is true, and if data continues to get better, if stitching it together across modes continues to get better, if AI continues to have an influence on all those things, I think the first question that we talked about visibility, and then when you go beyond visibility, I think the conversations will continue to shift towards not where is this shipment and what am I going to do about it, into AI and other things making decisions about those things. It'll shift from a where is this to what happened, because AI will proactively be making decisions based on all this information across all these different modes. It shifts from a visibility to an execution. It's not a network of modes and a network of transportation points. It is a network of decisions that are made based on better and better information and better technology that enables you to make those decisions.
Jake, thanks so much for this conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.